I could hear everybody, but I couldn't be heard, which is probably a good thing.
Good evening. I believe that we are live. Dr. Kane, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing just wonderful. Welcome, everyone, to Pause for the Truth. Tonight's show is going to be lively as ever. We have a very exciting panelist as we talk about my favorite subject, healthy eating for the holidays and getting fit. Joining us tonight are Chef Amadeus. How you doing this evening, Chef?
I'm doing great.
Excuse me, I should back up and say celebrity Chef Amadeus. Also joining us is Miss Linda Lockett Brown, one of my favorite registered dietitian, nutritionist, all those other exciting letters behind her name. How are you doing, Linda?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. And last but certainly not least, my former colleague and friend, Tyree Williams, who is multi-talented. Not only is he a personal fitness trainer, but Tyree is also a registered dietitian, amongst other things. How are you doing, Tyree?
I am doing awesome, Jocelyn, and very excited and honored to be with everyone tonight.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to apologize to our guests, as I know Dr. Kane would like to get a word in edgewise. But sorry, Dr. Kane, I kind of took over. But I want to apologize to our listeners. We had some technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and get the show started. Dr. Kane, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
I'm just happy to be heard at this moment in time. And as far as you're saying your favorite topic, I agree with everything, especially when it comes down to just the eating part. The rest of it, okay, fine. But I should be learning something pretty quickly.
Well, you know what, Dr. Kane, I know that on a day to day, at some point during the day, you are having conversations with your patients about how to manage their diabetes or their high blood pressure or their high cholesterol. Well, I thought tonight would be a good time for us to delve into that topic, really breaking it down to help people to understand how you don't have to dread the holidays in terms of what you're eating. There are actually practical things that we all can do. And the fact that we have Chef on, I've actually tasted some of his food and it's good. And I don't miss the salt. And so I'm going to go ahead and delve into the topic. So let me just ask you, and any of you can chime in, or all of you, and we'll go ladies first. Is it realistic, Linda, to eat healthy during the holidays, or would I be better served to increase my physical exercise to match my intake? And I'm going to let you and Tyree take that one for me.
Well, I'm going to start with the first part of the question. And the first part is realistic. So it's cold outside. And if you think about how many calories are in a slice of cake and how many miles you'd have to run or walk to burn that off, it's probably not realistic. So we're
Mm.
going to talk about some ways to moderate what goes in because most people don't have the endurance to burn that many calories, even if they went out for a run.
So you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, Linda, because years ago when I first started working as a health educator, and I learned how many calories were in a cup or half a cup of macaroni and cheese, almost 500 calories. I was like, good Lord, Tyree, how long will it take me to burn off those 500 calories typically?
I mean, if you are running full speed, you probably can burn that 500 calories probably in about 30 minutes if you're running full speed. But most people are not running full speed. So if you're walking just at a consistent pace, it probably would take you about 2 hours to burn 500 calories. So you don't.
And that's just the macaroni and cheese. That doesn't include the candy yams that usually accompany my macaroni and cheese, and including the cornbread as well, right?
And the red velvet cake.
Well, I don't have to
And
worry about that.
That's my favorite.
I don't like red velvet cake, but thank you. So I'll keep that in mind. Linda, were you going to say something?
that's why I said let's start with realistic.
Yeah, that was the magical word right there. So would it make sense to plan a year-long diet and exercise routine that allows me to eat well during the holidays?
Well, let's talk about that word diet because, most things go on in your head. So let's take the word diet out of the equation. So
Mm,
you want to look at a way to eat because diet implies something that you start and stop. Well, you don't want to do that. You want to eat well, and you can make some, simple adjustments up and down depending on what's going on. But you don't want to think about diet. You want to think about what do I need to eat to stay healthy? And healthy, as the chef knows, doesn't mean that it has to taste bad. It just means that you are making conscious decisions.
yeah,
I
yeah,
want
and
to
I was just
piggyback off of
gonna,
that.
yeah, I was gonna say, please chime in, Chef.
Okay, so one of the biggest things is, people always like, I'm gonna start this diet. I'm gonna start this diet. Diets, just make it a lifestyle. If that's something you do every day, make it a lifestyle. I think the biggest thing that is a obstacle is folks are when they hear, eating healthy, watching the calories, watching this, watching that. The biggest problem is they don't know what else is out there, and that's where someone like myself or a nutritionist comes in and say, hey, there's other things out there. Um, like I do a show in Orlando, and the host is a diabetic, so I make food for him all the time. And last Thanksgiving we did turkey. We did cranberry sauce that was made from scratch, but it was sweetened with grapes and agave versus all that sugar. And there was some citrus in there. There was some herbs in there and things like that. A lot of people eat from their childhood, and that's a good and bad thing. So that's why I like to teach folks how to eat what they did as a kid, but with a different technique on how to cook. Same thing, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, all that stuff, potato salad. The big potato salad that I do now that a lot of my folks that are having a healthy lifestyle is when I do the cauliflower potato salad. They
Mm.
love that. And it's great for diabetics. It's great to, for carbs, the whole 9 yards. So it's just being informed of what else is out there besides the norm. That's why when I use my spices, people are like, well, there's no salt in it. I'm like, yeah, you don't need a lot of salt. Use herbs, use citrus to make your food pop. And that's the big word that my mom told me, because I told her I didn't like cooking soul food because it didn't pop. She said, well, make it pop. So that's why I teach that same thing, make things pop that are good for you, give you alternatives, and show you how to cook them. Not just tell you, but I like to show you how to do it as well.
So when you talk about cooking with herbs, what type of herbs are you talking about?
Well, there's rosemary, there's sage, there's thyme. I mean, just any herb that you want. Like my spices, the one spice that I have the little bump, it's nothing in there but herbs and spices that you have in your cabinet. It's black, white, and red pepper, oregano, thyme, basil, onion, and garlic. All that is in your cabinet.
Chef, hold up. Don't give away your recipe.
And that's
You want people to buy your spices.
listen, it's just the ingredients. But here's the thing though. All those spices are in most cabinets, but they don't know how to put them together.
Yeah.
And that's why they dry out, because they spend $7 for a jar of onion powder and it stays there. So you have to learn how to use those herbs and spices in a way where it makes your food pop. And it could be anything. Just take those little steps And when I say little steps go into big steps. Like when I do, when I'm having salads, I put my cucumber in there. Okay. Then you have to figure out what goes well with cucumber. Same thing with your salad dressing. What goes good with a salad dressing? So you have to be creative. The biggest problem with salad dressings is everybody want to go buy one. And I tell them this: if you're going to go buy a salad dressing, go get the one in the produce department versus the one on the shelf. The one in the produce department has the expiration date that is coming up real soon. And if you want to make one from scratch, it's very easy to make any flavor salad dressing you want by simply emulsifying oil and vinegar, 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. And all you don't even need a blender. Just shake it up in a Tupperware container and then put a flavor in there. So you get grilled peaches and raspberries pureed added to that. Now you have a grilled peach and raspberry vinaigrette. That's just how simple it is.
Just that easy. One of the things
from
that
But here's the thing. Most people don't know that. They think they need a blender, a Vitamix, and all this stuff here. And when I teach people how to cook, I teach them how my mom taught me how to cook. Here's the techniques to do it. Put your flavor in there that you want. And here's how you do it.
Thank you. Linda, were you going to say something?
So with the salad dressing that he was just talking about, from a nutritional standpoint, what you just did was you dropped half of the fat. So when my clients ask me if I'm only going to do one thing, what does it need to be? Well, if they're trying to lose weight or if they're diabetic, the one thing to do is to drop fat, and that drops almost half the calories. And
So Linda,
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, I'll wait.
But it decreases the risk of so many things just by decreasing the fat, or even changing some recipes. You have to have fat, changing the type of fat that you use.
So you mentioned fat, you mentioned diabetes, you mentioned fat. And I know that for a person with diabetes, they obviously need to watch their carb intake and fat. Can you explain why, first of all, good and bad carbs, and then how does fat interact with people who have diabetes? What is, I thought when you have diabetes, you just watch your carb intake. Are you now saying you also have to watch your fat intake?
Let's go like 20,000 mile up view. Diabetes is not just about carbs. It's about total calories. So we focus on the carbs because they raise blood sugar the most and the fastest. So we do focus on those. But you have to look at total calories, because you could drop your carbs, eat too many calories from, say, meat, gain weight, become more insulin resistant, and now you still have a problem. So when you're looking at controlling blood sugar, you're looking at total calories. You're looking at total calories, and then that's why you need dietitians to help you with the proportion. Like, how many total calories do I need? How many of those need to be carbs? How many of those need to be protein? How many of those need to be fat? So it's really about total calories.
Linda, you struck on something. I hope people can hear me, but you struck on something, a subject matter. One is, can you explain, and I'm going to do a follow-up question after that. Can you explain insulin resistance to our audience?
Okay. When people have type 2 diabetes, they are making insulin. In fact, some of them are making too much insulin. But because they are carrying so much body fat, their body is ignoring the insulin that they're making. So then it just starts making more and making more. So when you get into that cycle, what it actually does is it causes your triglycerides to go up. When your triglycerides go up, now you're more insulin resistant. So it makes it very difficult makes it very difficult, not impossible, very difficult to lose weight. If your doctor is monitoring your blood sugar, then they may say, okay, we need to put you on insulin now. And that's a different ball game. So when you're looking at insulin resistance, you're making insulin, but your body is ignoring it. So the way you get your body to pay attention to the insulin is by controlling total calories and actually physical activity. That
So,
decreases it.
so if I wanted to take a shortcut to that explanation, would it be fair to say it takes more insulin to do the same thing less insulin did before?
Absolutely.
What
That's
did that
exactly
mean?
right.
I don't understand what that meant, Dr. Kane. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so previously, if you needed, when you were younger and you were in fit and you didn't have the obesity that I now carry. When I was in fit and I have the obesity that I now carry, I didn't need as much insulin to keep my blood sugar in a normal range. As I got older, began to pick up the calories, I started needing more insulin just to be able to keep my blood sugar in the normal range. And as I got older and even more calorie and more weight put on and so on and so on, I then began to, again, having required so much insulin, my pancreas could keep up with me up to a point. And then at some point, it kind of throws its hands up and say, look, I've done all I can do to keep it in normal range. And so now your sugar began to creep up, is my understanding of how things work. And then the other thing is sometimes, just as a caveat, sometimes you may develop insulin resistance 8 to 12 years before you actually start seeing a rise in your blood sugar.
Mm. Thank you. And Tyree, I want to bring you in as a personal trainer because I don't know if Dr. Kane or Linda mentioned it, but the importance of exercise in the whole scheme of managing your blood sugar. How does that work?
Of course, definitely. Thanks, Jocelyn, for that question. So basically, exercise really helps you. It's a great way to help maintain your blood sugar. Exercise helps to lower your blood sugar, but you also want to keep in mind that you want to make sure your blood sugar is at a safe range before you actually start exercising. But definitely, exercise is very vital. I would say it's something that a very important tool if you have diabetes in managing it.
So now I'm not, I'm going to talk from the person who said, I haven't really exercised in years. Yeah, maybe every now and then I'll get out and walk. How much exercising do I really need to do to help me manage not only my blood sugar, but my blood pressure as well? Am I going to need to go out and walk a couple of miles every day, or what exactly do I need to do as a person who might be getting started?
Definitely, that's an awesome question, and I think as a person getting started, you don't want to start doing too much in the beginning when you first begin, and especially if you do have any kind of chronic disease or anything. Usually, a personal trainer would recommend that you get cleared by a physician before you actually begin the exercise program.
Okay.
But I would say when you start out, you definitely want to start at a lot slower pace. You don't want to go out and walk 3 miles if you haven't walked 10 feet. So definitely you want to start where you're at and then just build on top of that. And one thing that I always like to communicate with people is think about where you're at and how much harder you're going to have to work to continue to lose that same amount of weight as you begin to lose weight. So you don't want to start running 5 miles, because once you start losing weight and you hit a plateau, then what are you going to do? Run 10 miles? So always start at the baseline and gradually increase. I would say a good rule of thumb is to do about 30 minutes most days of the week, or 60 minutes about 3 to 4 times a week of aerobic exercise. You always want to do some kind of strength training exercise and stretch as well. So just a few tips there.
I'm glad you said what you did, because I remember when I was at the health department, people used to say, well, I exercise 3 days a week. 30 minutes at a time. And I said, that rule changed. It went out the window. Now it is most days of the week. Most days of the week, in my eyes, is Monday through Sunday. But we'll let you off on Sunday and say at least Monday through Saturday, try to do some exercise on a daily basis. So are there team or friend challenges that create a support group for managing one's diet, or even to help people to get started? Now, I have to give a shout out to my good friends, the I Will Work Out crew, or the Justice League of Fitness, who have dedicated their lives to helping people. But does anybody know of any team or friendship challenges that create a support group for managing one's diet?
I'll jump in and answer that one. You got some pretty good apps out there where you can challenge like a friend or a group. One of those apps that I usually kind of recommend to a lot of people is MyFitnessPal. It's really great. We talked a little bit about being able to understand the amount of calories that you should have and things like that, and being able to go and consult with a dietitian. And MyFitnessPal is a great way to actually track those calories, because it actually tells you how much calories, how much fat, how much carbohydrate is in the food. So that's a great tool that I usually recommend, MyFitnessPal, but there's a lot of great fitness apps out there.
I think that one of the things that we should do, and I'm gonna put somebody on the spot, but I think myself, along with a trainer and a nutritionist, should join forces and show what it takes all the way around, from the eating, the cooking tips. Because the cooking tips, I think, is really nice, because people get to see that it's not as hard as they think it is, and it still has flavor in it. I run into so many people that they don't know they don't read labels, and always about reading labels about the salt content, and I have to educate them on read labels, read all the labels, and so you'll know what's going in your body, and how you can play that balancing game. So I think if folks see people that look like them, showing them exactly how to do it on a regular basis, nothing extreme or anything like that, just regular. What do you have for dinner? We have, Sunday dinner is chicken, collard greens, cabbage, the whole 9 yards. Well, I like to show them how to make that same meal look like it used to, but it has a lot flavor and is healthier for them.
And
Yeah,
Johnson,
and I want to repeat one
real
thing.
quick.
Somebody asked the question, Dr. Kane. Hold on a second. The app that Tyree mentioned was MyFitnessPal.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to interject something real quick, and because someone else asked, texted to me, and I was thinking the same thing. When you check with as far as CDC and some of the other organizations that discuss, and being a physician, that's what I kind of look at some of these things. That you need a total for moderate intensity aerobic activity. You want to do about 150 minutes a week. So how you divide that up, it's nice to say, 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, if you want to even it out. But they basically looking at about 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. Now I can let our exercise guru define moderate intensity aerobic activity. I let them take the lead on that.
Of course. So when you think about moderate intensity exercise, that would be like walking about 3 miles an hour. So you're not really walking really fast. So that's about a 20-minute mile. And then vigorous activity would be probably about twice as much as that. So when you think about a 20-minute mile, that's pretty much like a steady pace, but not too fast. So you should be, when you think, an easy way to think about it is your heart rate and your breathing. So once you start breathing faster when you exercise, you usually notice you start breathing faster. And then when you start breathing really hard and really fast, it's like you out of breath, and That's vigorous activity. Moderate activity is you're breathing hard, but you still can kind of speak. Like if you were walking with somebody, you might stop to take a breath, but you can still talk to that person. So
And
that's
also,
the easy way.
and also mentioning as well is because I heard one of you guys mention it. I think it was you that mentioned muscle strengthening activity. So they also recommending at least 2 days a week on that. And so you can also give us a little insight on that activity if you don't mind.
Definitely. So muscle building activities, most people think about weights, so weight training, but you can also do calisthenics, you can do push-ups, you can do wall push-ups, you can do chair squats. So you don't, it's not things that you necessarily have to do in the gym. There are other activities that you can do, but they're generally exercises that build muscle. And generally they recommend about 2 sets. Um, of each large muscle group. So each large muscle group is going to be like your chest. That's going to be like your arms. That's going to be like your legs. So basically, if you do like a push up, if you do 2 sets of about 20 push ups, 10 push ups starting out, then you build upon that. But that should be um, good enough for you to actually maintain some muscle. But the longer you do it, you have to do a little bit more. So,
Well, I might start out with 2 push-ups and go from there.
hey, everybody got to start somewhere. So I definitely understand.
That is my
Ty-
point. At least start.
Oh
Tyree,
yeah.
does it matter what time of day I exercise?
The scientific answer is no. My answer would be yes, because I usually tell individuals exercise when you want to exercise. Because a lot of people, if you're starting out, they either are out of the routine or they're not exercising because they don't like exercising. So at least try to make it at a time where it's not a stressful time for you. You have more energy. Some people have more energy in the morning. Some people have more energy in the afternoon. So make sure it's a time that is an enjoyable time for you. But that's my recommendation on that. And then also the recommendation is about 10-minute bouts at a time. So you don't have to do that full 30 minutes all at one time. You can do 10 minutes. And then you could do 10 minutes, maybe midday, and 10 minutes later on in the evening. But you don't have to do that full 30 minutes at one time.
So what you're
And that's
saying is a
good.
totality of 30 minutes a day. However you accumulate that, you get that kind of exercise in. Is that what I'm hearing, Tyree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then one other thing, the only thing that I sometimes would talk with patients about is sometimes some people, and I'm not saying this is all people, I like doing it more in the morning. I get a little bit more energy when I do the exercise in the morning. The problem is sometimes people that do it at night, because you kind of ignite some of these various hormones and neurochemicals and yada, 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 that kind of stuff. Some people may find it difficult to go to sleep when they exercise late night.
Not
Yep.
me, Dr. Kane. I can do it. It doesn't matter with me. I get it
I'm just
in.
throwing it out.
I get it in. But I want to ask a question of, and Dr. Kane, feel free to chime in as well as our panelists. Why is belly fat not good for our health? And how do the people that are listening to the show get that 6-pack again or close to it?
I'm gonna let the guest start out, and then I'll chime
Well,
in.
the reason why belly fat is such an issue is we're talking specifically about the fat that's right behind your navel. That fat talks to your liver. And when it talks to your liver, it raises your cholesterol, raises your blood sugar. So that, and I want you to think about people that are of Asian descent. They're generally tiny, but if they eat American food, they start getting fat right behind their navel. So if you put them on a scale, they're not even overweight. But because they have that, we call it visceral fat, because they have visceral fat, it starts affecting how their body handles carbs, fats, and proteins.
So is the belly fat is raising my blood sugar and cholesterol, or is the liver contributing to my blood sugar and cholesterol rising?
The belly fat is talking to your liver.
Okay. Okay.
And one
Eh,
of the other things from a medical standpoint, if your liver starts to store fat, so you get what we call non-alcoholic fatty liver. Your liver it helps to break down stuff like triglycerides, which basically kind of like what it sounds, three molecules of fat, 3 molecules of sugar, help to break down in a person that doesn't have much of. I mean, we're not discussing obesity. I'm just talking to a normal individual who's, when you eat and you bring in a huge amount of sugar or whatever, your sugar in your bloodstream is enough to sustain you during the time that sugar is actually within the bloodstream. You're going to burn that up much like a car with gasoline. You're going to burn that sugar in your bloodstream, and if you don't have a way of replenishing it, you will do as in comparison with a car, you run out of gas. So the liver helps to break down these that triglycerides to help maintain your the level of sugar in your bloodstream during times of fasting. To put it in a nutshell, and I can stand corrected on that with my dietitian, but pretty much that's my understanding.
Well, the
well, I
bottom
still.
line is if you are overeating calories and there's one thing that has a greater effect on what you were just mentioning about the uh, basically the NASH as we call it
Mm-hmm.
is drinking sodas. I have clients that when I look at their labs, it looks like they are alcoholic. They're
Mm-hmm.
not alcoholic. This is from drinking
Sugar.
sodas.
Sugar.
Yeah,
You
it's
drinking
from
sugar.
too much sugar. So if you think about a 16-ounce soda, that's 16 teaspoons of sugar. 8-ounce soda, 8 teaspoons of sugar. And that's just straight calories. And your body does not need that. And I have clients that say to me, well, they tell me that the diet sodas are just as bad. Yes, they are in a different way, but no one needs to consume that much sugar.
And
So I have clients that their liver enzymes are so elevated that basically their doctors are freaking out. And if they do what I tell them to do, we can start reversing that in 30 days.
I don't want to let anybody off the hook as far as drinking juices as well, because they also have those empty calories of sugar.
They are
Particularly,
equal.
yeah, they're equal. I just wanted to make sure our audience didn't think, oh, well, I just won't drink sodas and I drink juices.
So then, Dr. Kane, that leads me to how much water am I really supposed to drink each day? And what can I
Now,
add to it to make it more flavorful?
well, you can add flavor to it, and as long as it's not sugary related product. But as a rule of thumb, I just tell my patients, as a rule of thumb, that I would like for them. There's two rules I can kind of give them. I'd like for them to at least drink about half their weight in water, meaning in terms of ounces. So if a person weighed 100 ounces, I'd like for them to drink about 50
100
ounces of water.
pounds? If
I
they
mean,
weigh
100
100
pounds. I'm
pounds?
sorry. Yeah, 100 pounds. I'd like for them to drink about 50 ounces of water a day. Now, of course, I don't expect somebody with 400 pounds to jump up to 200 ounces a day. That might be kind of difficult for them. But just as a rule of thumb, that's what I tell them, just to kind of give them some gauge. And the other part I may tell them is that you can kind of help gauge if you're taking in enough water, kind of, by looking at the concentration of your urine, how yellow it may be. The more color you have to it in terms of yellow, darkening of the color of the urine, that what you're looking at is probably concentrated urine, and so a lot of times that may be an indication or most of the time, maybe an indication minus any external sources like vitamins that have dyes and stuff in it. But if we just assume person is not on any medication, that dark urine may indicate you need to increase your water intake.
Thank you. So, Chef, I'm going to come back to you for a second.
Okay.
So now, realistically, some of us are going to prepare some soul food in our Thanksgiving dinner, or I'm going to even go even sooner, our Sunday dinner. So is it really possible to modify soul food to make it healthier and tasty?
Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell you how I found out about it. I lived in Seattle for 11 years. And my clients love soul food, but they don't like it fried. They don't like it, all the heaviness of it. So when I moved to Seattle, I had to make a change with Southern cuisine. And what I went back to was, let's think about let's take collard greens. What goes into collard greens? What do most people put in their collard greens? They put some kind of meat, they put some kind of acid in it, and they put some kind of sugar in it. So what I've done is, for my acid, I'll add tomatoes to it. For some sugar, I'll add in sweet potatoes and carrots and some onions and get that natural sugar in there. And then most of the time, what I like to do, there's a condiment, a Puerto Rican condiment called sofrito. It has peppers, onions, garlic, cilantro, all those fresh things in there, olive oil, everything. And that's what I cook my greens with. It has lots of flavor.
That? Wait a minute,
all of
Chef.
that.
All of that? That doesn't sound like collard greens anymore. That sounds like a soup.
No. Here's the thing. When you try it, you've had a lot of my food. Like when I cooked that over with the Boys and Girls Club thing, you were like, I can't believe this tastes like this.
And I've been making it ever since.
But believe it or not, what people don't realize is vegetables have flavor and nutrients. One of the things that I see a lot of is when people cook their collard greens, they cook it till it's brown. So you cook all the nutrients out of it, and then the water that you have in there, the pot liquor, you throw that away. So it's like you cook all the nutrients out of it and you eat that. So I don't cook my collard greens until they're another color. They're collard greens, not collard browns.
And it only takes about 20 minutes,
And
not an hour.
Really?
You know what? People say, well, it takes forever to cook greens. I said, it only takes me about 20 minutes. They say, why is that? First of all, I don't put any meat in my greens. Second of all, I don't cut my greens up big and thick. So I cut them smaller so they cook quicker. And as far as, adding a liquid to it, one of the things people just want to do is, one, add in chicken broth. They'll put in a chicken bouillon. They'll get, this can of chicken broth, and it says reduced sodium, and then things like that. But what happens is that it's reduced sodium, but it's reduced from a high number to still a higher number, but less than what the other ones have. There's only one chicken stock that I found that had like 3% sodium in it, and it was in Publix. But you need to find ways to add more flavor to it than adding those preservatives. Anytime, just look, when they put preservatives in these foods, doesn't mean it's going to preserve your body. It doesn't work that way.
Chef, you've struck on 2 points that I run into quite frequently with my patients, and that is high sodium and high fat, especially as far as it comes to greens. We tend, as a culture, we tend to take and add these highly fatted food, ham, hock, neck bones, whatever, and turn our greens from a vegetable into a meat because It has so much fat on it. And I like to point it out to patients that, you cook it like you normally cook it. You take it and stick it in the refrigerator. And when you bring it out, what do you see on top of it?
Yeah.
And they see all this fat. And they tend to get under the facade of, well, I stick it on the stove and I heat it up. That fat disappears, but it's not going anywhere. It hasn't went anywhere. They consume it. And so now I get these high cholesterol, yada, 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 yada. And then the other thing is high sodium in terms of, like you said, the stock that the people have the reduced sodium, but like you said, reduced from what? They're reduced from a high content of sodium in the first place, but it still remains a lower but high content of salt. And
Right.
they tend to use a lot of smoked meats. And of course, smoked meat, a lot of it means it's cured. And people forget what the definition of cured, where it come from.
Well, here's the other thing too. Those smoked meats that you see in the stores,
Mm-hmm.
they aren't traditionally smoked.
Right.
They've
That's
been
right.
they've been altered and enhanced. So
Mhm.
now here's something that should be done. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna start asking my folks that do barbecue this. Can people bring you their meat and let them smoke it for you? Because that's smoked meat.
That's
That's
truly
smoked
smoked meat.
turkey.
Yes.
And it's not so perfect example. Like I like a lot of Asian cuisine. And one of the main ingredients in Asian cuisine is soy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do
Liquid
my Asian
sauce.
cuisines like I normally do, but instead of using soy sauce, I use coconut amino acids. And what that does is it takes it from 23% sodium down to 6% sodium.
Mm.
That's about 18. That's about 18 points right there.
Is the flavor the same though, Chef?
The flavor is the same. And if you use coconut amino acid, like there's another dish, Japanese dish called tare. It uses soy sauce and a lot of it. But I use the coconut amino acids, and you can't tell the difference. And
Yeah,
that's
I want
what
to go ahead and
Wait a
and
minute,
do
Johnson, real
plug,
quick. I like to tell my patients that soy sauce is liquid salt. And hot
That's right.
sauce is spicy liquid salt.
Well, here's the thing about hot sauce. Here's the thing about hot sauce. I tell people look at me like I'm weird because I read labels on hot sauce. They're like, why do you do that? I'm like, because there's sodium in there.
Yes.
There's sodium in what people don't realize is this. Every piece of thing that they cook at home and drink at home
Mm-hmm.
has some type of sodium in it. And they're like, well, this only has 11% and this only has 2%. That's for that meal. Let's look at what it is for the entire day. What you drink, what you snack on, what you eat,
Add
and
it up.
the whole 9 yards. And people like, well, I didn't know it was that much salt because you only looking at it per meal. Look at it per day.
Mm-hmm.
Out throughout the whole day, because like you say, drinking sodas. The one thing I always tell people is, why are you drinking Gatorade? Gatorade is meant to replenish something. If you don't get rid of anything, you're just stacking dirty laundry inside the closet, hoping nobody open the door.
And it was designed for elite athletes
Exactly.
that were going to be out in the heat for an extended period of time, which is not most of, at least my clients anyway.
And
so,
then
Linda, how much sodium do we need a day? Since Chef mentioned that, what's the maximum amount of sodium we need a day?
Well, see, the government has this number that they use, and I totally disagree with the number. The number that the government uses is 2,300 milligrams a day. For people that look like us, the number is 1,500.
Wow.
Exactly.
So so when you think about high blood pressure, you got to think of it in two different ways. One is, what do you need less of, and what do you need more of? So what you need less of is what we've been talking about. You need less sodium, but what you need more of is potassium. And so if you've ever looked at the DASH diet, that's really what it's doing. It's dropping sodium, it's adding potassium. So where do you get potassium from? You get it from fruits and vegetables. So a lot of things that the chef was talking about with adding flavor, it's also a way to add potassium. And so and I'm talking about folks that don't have problems with their kidneys. We're talking just general. The things that add flavor, like if you used, let's say you made a glaze from oranges, you're going to be adding potassium. So a lot of the things that are flavorful, you're actually going to be adding some other nutrients and balancing out that sodium.
So Linda,
I
I need to add more vegetables to my day. What are some ways add more creative ways to add more vegetables at each meal? Chef, why are you laughing? Because I've had this conversation with you before.
No, because I was just having this conversation with somebody else, and one of the things that I do, because one of my habits is I love sandwiches. Oh, I love sandwiches, just sloppy sandwiches. So what I started doing is I'll have omelets in the morning with vegetables in them. So I get like the mixed vegetables with the green beans, the peas, the carrots, and all that stuff. I'll saute that up and make an omelet with it. And that way I have protein in my vegetables. I don't do a lot of dairy, so I don't put cheese in it, but I have my protein in my vegetables to start my day with. And then the other thing that I drink a lot of now is this thing called golden milk, with almond milk and turmeric and everything. But I have one of my spices that just dropped. It has turmeric, it has pepper in it, it has ginger, cumin, cardamom, all these fresh spices, and that's what I drink in the morning, and it makes me feel so. Gives me a lot of energy and a little pep in my step. So you just have to change just a little bit at a time, because you can't go cold turkey. That's one thing I tell you. You can't go from what you're doing now to strictly cold turkey. You got to wean yourself off of that, and that's what becomes a lifestyle versus a diet.
Just real quick commentary. I can't let it pass. I think what Linda said is absolutely correct. That African Americans or Black folks, your whatever term you want to use, whomever we're talking to, but Black folks don't. We only need about 2/3 of the amount of salt that Caucasians need, because we don't get rid of sodium as easily as they do. And
why is that, Dr. Kane?
It's genetics.
Oh.
Think of who survived on the trip from Africa.
Yeah.
The people that survived on the trip from Africa were the ones that had the genetic ability to concentrate sodium. Everybody else died.
And I tell people that
Wow.
story quite a bit, that when the continent of Africa is equatorial, it's hot, humid. The good Lord gave us the ability to survive over there with the increased pigmentation of skin, the wide nostril to take in more thinned out air because of the heat. But the other thing that you can't see, but that he did give us, and that is the ability to concentrate our sodium to keep us from getting so dehydrated in the atmosphere. When they stuck us on the boat and put us, foot apart, down in the hole, never saw fresh air, never saw anything. People were defecating and urinating on each other. You wind up getting a whole bunch of dehydration as a result of dysentery and other different issues, and they threw a lot of us overboard. So only what Linda was stating just now, with just not as long-winded as I am, only those people who were the best of the best at concentrating their sodium and holding on to help maintain their hydration level, those are the only ones survive. So, your descendants of the best as it relates to your ability to hold on to salt and prevent dehydration. And then you get into a culture like what we have that's very high in salt. This is a high salt culture because salt is the cheapest preservative that they can come up with in these fast food restaurants and along with other items. So that's my soapbox as far as blood pressure and salt is concerned.
Well, this Dr. Kane, this is a good time for me to give a plug for a chef, because Chef has created some salt-free seasonings and spices,
Exactly.
as he call them, and they're available on Etsy. Chef Amadeus will let you, or just go to chefamadeus.net, .com. What is
Spell
that?
Amadeus. Spell Amadeus.
So now I have 5 different spices, and they're all used for different. Like tonight, I had a Cornish game hen, and I put in on my citrus pepper. The citrus pepper is a lemon pepper with no salt in it, and the people that are using it are loving the fact that they can use a lot of that without worrying about all the sodium in there. Then the curry powder, same thing. It's a mix between Indian and Caribbean, but it's all herbs and spices. So when you're cooking with it, that's what you get. If you look at most spices, and I tell people this all the time, it's like, well, this spice is only $5 for 12 ounces. I say, okay, look at the salt content in that. There's my spice guy tells me all the time that the reason your spice is so expensive because there's no fillers in there.
Well, pay
And
me
that's
now,
what
pay me
that's
later.
what I want. I want no fillers in these things. Like I say, I have a couple of them that have sugar in them, but as far as the salt goes, a lot of Black folks are very heavy-handed, and if you smoke, you're even more heavy-handed than the average bear.
So
So
that
make sure
link-
you put that wet.
So right.
There you
I was
go.
just about to say that, Dr.
Okay.
Kane. So Chef, can you spell out your website where they can get your spices?
It's Chef Amadeus, AMADEUS.net, chefamadeus.net. And if you guys have any questions about my spices or cooking with them or anything, just reach out to me. I have no problem talking to you about how to use my spices. And it's just free of charge. I'm not going to try to, charge you to ask me about my spices, because I want you to be well educated on them the same way I've been educated with going through this spice process. So if anybody has any questions about what to cook, how to cook, or anything of that nature, I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you.
And also,
when you
with
start,
Linda, hold on, Linda, I got to give
okay.
you a plug. Also with Linda, you can hear she's a registered dietitian and available for consultation as well, because one thing that people don't realize, and was going to lead into my next question, but I'm going to first give a plug to you, is that when folks are diagnosed with diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol, when we walk in that grocery store, we're still going to go and pick up the things that we're accustomed to picking up. But going to a registered dietitian like Linda, and by the way, your insurance plans probably cover you're going to see Linda like you're going to see your doctor. So don't rule it out that, oh, I cannot afford her. Check with your insurance plan, because you probably will be able to afford her. And we're going to make sure that we put Chef's information as well as Linda's information, contact information, on our website. So Linda, I'm going to give you a chance now to tell folks how to reach you for a consultation.
Okay, the way to reach me is sinetnutrition.com, and I'll spell it. And that's CINETNUTRITION.com. And I just want to say the way that I approach, helping you get better is I am not going to give you a diet sheet. I will find out what you are eating now, what you are willing and able to do, and we will customize the meal plan. So I'm not going to tell you to go out and get asparagus if you don't even know what an asparagus looks like.
Or you
So I
don't like
like
it.
to start you where you are and then move you slowly to a better place.
Excellent.
Thank you. So Tyree, I want to ask you a question because many of our listeners may have some mobility issues and not don't really have the stamina, if you will, to start an exercise regimen. Are chair exercises really effective? And if so, how do you get started with that?
Definitely. So chair exercises are definitely a great way to start out an exercise program if you do have some issues with like achy joints or mobility issues, or you just haven't done anything in a long time and you want to be cautious and start slow. Chair exercises are a great way to really get some exercise in. So in the chair, you can pretty much work just about every muscle group. So if you think about your legs, you can work your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves, work all of those muscle groups by simply sitting down and standing up. And for individuals who do have issues with squats with your knees or just pain, you can actually do a modified squat and actually not sit down so deep when you do your squat. So start at a higher level when you sit down, so you're not really putting a lot of stress on the knees. And in addition to that, you can do things like dips for your arms and your chest and your shoulders. So you can pretty much work your full body doing chair exercise.
Sitting down. Wow.
Yeah.
And I've learned that I know years ago, I used to hear people saying, well, I don't have any hand weights. What are some things that people can use around the house instead of going out buying hand weights?
So I always like to tell individuals about jugs. So you have water jugs, milk jugs. You can actually fill those up with sand or water, depending on how heavy you want it to be. Or you could do sand and water, which is even heavier. But that's a real easy way to kind of create a dumbbell or a hand weight that you can kind of use to do different exercises to strengthen your arms and your legs as well. So that is probably the simplest tool or free tool that you can use to actually turn into a piece of exercise equipment.
Oh, okay, so that can of vegetables was not heavy enough, huh? All righty. So I'm telling on myself.
But JT,
Anyway.
before you go on, I would like to ask our exercise guru, what about that belly fat in terms of trying to get some of that belly fat off without doing these sit-ups that is so bad for people who have a bad back like myself?
Definitely. So I usually always try to stress to my clients, for one, count the cost. So if you want a six-pack and you've never had a six-pack in your life, you're probably going to have to go on a really drastic,
Hey, what's up?
calorie restricted, super restricted diet in order to get abs, and that's not healthy either. So if genetically you've never had abs, don't look at abs as the holy grail of being healthy, because that may not be your genetics to have abs. But you do want to make sure you have a strong core, because having a strong core can prevent you from hurting your back and things like that. And there's definitely other exercises you can do. One of my favorite exercises, and probably a pretty tough exercise to do, is a plank. So if you just Google plank, that's a great exercise for your core. Another slightly easier exercise is called the Superman. So you just pretty much laying on your stomach and raising have your arms and your legs straight out and raise both of them at the same time.
Like you're flying like Superman, huh?
Yep. So
There
that's
you
why
go.
it's called Superman.
Right.
And you'll definitely feel those. So those are two really great core exercises that don't involve crunches or sit-ups.
And can I do that laying in the bed? Because getting down on the ground,
No.
Tyree, it's not pretty trying to get up. I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna put it out there for all of our listeners who I know I'm not the only one. So I just have to ask, can I do it on my bed? Sorry, Dr. Kane, I'm not listening to you.
Roll with it. Roll with it.
But that brings up a very good point. That's why sometimes you need a little help. So you go to the professionals that can get you started and get you on the right path.
That's true. You're right. Well, this has been a very good discussion. I know we didn't get through all the things that we wanted to talk about. And again, apologizing to our listeners, but this is the beginning of our conversation and discussion as all of us ready ourselves for the holidays, because it is a challenging times emotionally. So we are going to maybe need to talk about that soon because of the losing loved ones. And for so many folks who have lost their lives due to the pandemic, it's the holidays just are not all about being happy for folks. So that may be a future topic. But I think tonight our panelists gave us some real good insight to know that it's not hopeless. There's help out there for us, but we need to seek help. And so I would like to invite our panelists, and I will call on each one of you to give some final thoughts to our listeners. And I will start with ladies first. Linda?
Well, my advice is don't consider the holidays as a free for all. Don't give yourself a pass just because it's the holiday. Be intentional about what you do. So if you go to someone's house and they have this big spread, look at everything that's available and decide before you put a single thing on your plate what you are going to eat. Get a one spoonful, one forkful, sit down, pay attention to it, enjoy every bite, but don't go back for seconds.
Okay, thank you. Chef?
Yeah. My thing is, just be open to new flavors, new ways of cooking old dishes, and like I said, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to give you that advice to make you have. And eating healthy through the holidays is, I've always done it as a game. Like how much can I enjoy the holidays and not feel like Thanksgiving bloated every day? Because that's where everybody come by and they want to drop off all kind of food and you want to eat everything. So you need to be more conscious of what you're eating and how much you're eating throughout the holiday season. Because those desserts are really, really good. Down south we love our real velvets and the sweet potato pies and all that good stuff. So just have a very um, open mind on how to cook differently the same foods you grew up with.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about is portion control, and I've seen those petite size red velvet bites. Chef, I had to give that plug in, even though I'm not a red velvet fan. Tyree, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Definitely. So as I was kind of just preparing for the podcast tonight, I just Googled holiday weight gain, and in looking at it, I was surprised and seeing that there was a study that was done, and really it was just saying that we think that we gain a lot of weight over the holidays, but that's not necessarily true. The study was saying that you gain probably about a pound on average over the holidays, but it's a marathon and not a sprint. So thinking about the holidays, I would say, just to echo everyone else, really try to be mindful of what you're eating and the habits that you're starting, because just because you may not gain a lot of weight over the holidays, if you get into a routine and you create a habit of poor eating habits into the new year and that carries on for months, then that's where you see a lot of that weight gain. So it's a marathon and not a sprint. Just remember to be mindful about what you're eating, and also trying to also get physical activity in as well during the holidays is really important. So I think my last words is it's a marathon and not a sprint. So just be mindful year round of what you're doing, and putting into your body and the exercise that you're doing.
And give your loved ones a gym membership. I'm just saying, nobody asked me that, but that's the gift that we give them. Give them the gift of a chef to prepare a healthy meal, or a visit to the registered dietitian, or a gym membership or a personal trainer membership, just in case somebody was looking for what gifts to give their loved ones. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts or thoughts about tonight's discussion?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of flavor from what each one of our guests have said. Excuse the pun. And that will be, I want to make sure that people realize that when they're doing these holidays with their family, I want them to enjoy their families, enjoy their outings. But, you know, a lot of times different people bring food to family events. Be sure to taste the food first before you just sprinkle salt on it because you think it may need salt. Be sure to eat smaller portions, much like our guest has said. Be sure that also that you recall that you're not only just eating foods, but a lot of times it's eat, drink, and be merry. So the drinking part winds up being an issue because alcohol consumption becomes significant, not only because, you know, the danger it represents and with driving and stuff like that, but also because it represents additional caloric intake. You got to remember, alcohol is a sugar and it's just a concentrated sugar. So you're going to be adding to the potential for worsening your diabetes and or worsening your weight and the things of that nature. And then finally, I think that there's with the holidays, people tend to kind of group Thanksgiving and Christmas so close together. I mean, 3 weeks ago, people started putting up Christmas trees, and I'm going like, well, we haven't even got through Thanksgiving yet. But people tend to celebrate them together. And in this year, especially with the lifting of the pandemic, people may start partying and continue to party throughout the whole holidays as an excuse, or I'm not going to say an excuse to eat and drink and be merry, but as a something to enjoy. But you may not enjoy the consequences thereafter with regard to weight gain, the elevated blood pressure, which if you already got blood pressure issues, now you increase your risk for stroke, you increase your risk for heart attack, you know, as with that elevation of blood pressure and the additional cholesterol intake, that can be an issue. And so I just want people to be cognizant of the full sphere and gamut of what they're doing and the impact it may have on their health. And for sure, there is plenty of time to exercise between those two holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, should you decide to overindulge on either or both of those holidays. And then you got New Year's coming right thereafter. So just be cognizant of what you're eating, how much you're eating, the exercise you need to do. And as the chef said, everything can be flavorful. You don't necessarily need all the sugar, the salt, and the sugar, salt, and the fat that we traditionally are eating with these holidays, because there's a lot of fat in our Southern cooking.
Wow, Dr. Kane, that was a mouthful. We could have had you do the show by yourself tonight with that.
Nope.
But in all seriousness, thank you so much to our panelists. The discussion was great. We hope that you will join us on a future show, because we all know, I'm going to go ahead and give my pitch to you. We all know that people start making those resolutions for the new year. So I would love to have the three of you back and even talk about that, particularly as we talked about, it's not just about the holidays, it's about a lifestyle. So really making a lifestyle change at the beginning of the year. To our listeners, as always, thank you so much for listening in. If any of you have any show ideas or topics that you'd like for us to talk about, then of course, email us at info@pauseforthetruth.com, info@pauseforthetruth.com. And also invite your family and friends to listen to us. We're here every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. live, open to getting questions from folks. We're now live on Facebook. So thank you all for listening, and tune in next week for pauseforthetruth.com.
Good night.
Definitely. Thank you. Happy holidays and good luck to everybody.